Oh, okay. Well, no, but I did have a bit though.
Oh, what's your bit?
It's summertime. You want to go to some tropical islands? Well, you know what the next best thing is? Playing an RPG set in an archipelago.
Let's go! The magic of imagination.
Game read through with friend Lex Mandrake in the top right corner.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jordan with a silent PH in the middle. You are watching Jordan's Jocular Junction, and we're hanging out with Lex in the top right corner. We're going to talk about some indie RPGs. This is Mangaya. And we're going to start with Jordan did not do his homework, and I don't know much about this, so Lex is leading the charge. But Lex, what is Mangaya?
Mangaya.
Role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game.
Yes. So this is a hack of Cairn. This is actually my excuse to do a Cairn game. I was going to do Cairn, which is a very good game. It's a great indie RPG, minimalist game. But everybody knows what Cairn is. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I decided it would be more fun to take one of the many, many really cool hacks that have been made of Cairn.
Okay.
The creator of Cairn really fosters a great community around doing this.
Nice.
So I thought, let's look at some of the cool ones out there. And this is the one I like the most. So this is the one I brought to the table. So we're going to talk about not only this and how it is unique, but also about the Cairn rule set that it uses.
Okay. Now, for those of us who don't know, what is the Cairn rule set?
Well, we're going to get into it.
Okay.
It's a minimalist RPG system. It's based off Into the Odd by Chris McDowell and some other stuff, right? But this is Mangaya, as we said. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. This is all based on Philippine folklore. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of words that, you know what? I'm very white. Forewarning, I'm very white. Sorry, everyone.
I love this cover, though. This is super fun.
It's very, very cool. And this is written by Benjamin Moses M. Dinyaho II. Again, I think I pronounced that right. And like I said, it's based off Cairn, which is by Yohai Gal. And it's very cool. I'll read you the little top of the page intro from the book. Mangaya is an RPG for one facilitator, the manga awit, and at least one other player. Players act as binmanwa, adventurers and survivors in an archipelago of bloodshed and goldlust. This game is inspired by Philippine legend, folklore, culture, and history. The game is a work in progress, as is its setting. Oh, and that last thing, don't let that deter you, because this is a very complete document, which is totally good to run as is, but it's nice that the creator is still, going to be adding to it.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you should sleep on this, right? You don't need to wait to pick it up. It is totally runnable as is.
And the cool thing about Itch, I'm finding out as I'm getting more games off of Itch, is that you get little updates. They're like, oh, hey, I added this to the PDF. And then, more stuff. So whether you bought this or it's pay what you want, I believe. But whether you're giving them $5 or $1 or no dollars, it's still in your library. And that's how the the Itch sphere is kind of growing, I think, is because everyone's hacking and taking their stuff, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Oh, this is a Creative Commons license. Speaking of hacking and sharing content, so you can go ahead and hack away at this if you'd like. And the first thing that this book includes, after that fun little intro, is the sets of principles. This was a thing that Yohai puts in Cairn, and the first several sections of principles are taken right out of Cairn. But they're really great because they're just sort of couple sentence descriptions each of ideas that you should keep in mind when you're running or playing the game that are very much in line with the OSR sort of play style, right? So we have things like high lethality, the fact that this system is classless, that the game master should be neutral, that it should be very difficult, that kind of thing. And then we have sort of subsections of the principles. So we have principles for the manga awit, which is the game master for this. And those are things like giving information, again, setting difficulty, being prepared, having a narrative focus, giving players choice, having treasure available and gettable to the players, and making the world very dangerous. And then the Die of Fate, something we've talked about with some other games. I think we talked about it with World of Dungeons. They talked about Die of Fate in there. Works the same in here. And then we have principles for the players. So things like agency, teamwork, exploration, planning, caution, talking things out, and ambition. And then, so those are, that stuff's all from Cairn, right? Then we have principles of the world. So this is where it really hammers home this setting and how it's different from the boilerplate version of Cairn, right? So it has the islands, which are very cool. They're like the broken bodies of these giant animals, basically, because I think that's like Philippine folklore type inspiration stuff. But there's like the northern island chain is like the crocodile, right? So it's got this mountain range that's like it's like lizard spine, right? And then we've got the eastern ones are the sea turtle, and then the southern ones are the eagle. We have stuff about the wilds, stuff about the underworld and how it works in this setting. We have a little bit about the sea and kind of, you know, how it's thought of in the setting, how you should think about it, how divinity works, how native peoples are, you know, going to interact with other stuff here. It's really, really cool. Oh, and then colonization is a thing in this game. And like they have like we'll get into it later, but colonizers are like in the monster section, so they're statted out so you can fight them.
Okay.
But yeah, what you are not playing the colonizers. You got to beat them up. And sort of how the people of the islands view them and how they interact, and labors and raids. And then we have a bunch of different names for the setting and some stuff about content and safety tools, which is, you know, always important, good to have. Then we jump into character creation. And like I said, based off Cairn, very minimalistic character creation. You have 3 stats. They are Lakas, Lixie, and Lube. But they, in Cairn, it's strength, dex, and will. And they mean the same things. We're just using Filipino terms for them. And that's something that is you're going to see a lot in this book, is it will be things that it's like, oh, I know what that would be in a Western RPG, because it's usually told what the, you know, sort of Western version of the name is. Yeah. And then it gives the Philippine version of the word, and does that like on the first introduction of those terms, and then later in the book it just uses the Philippine term. So it's one of those things that I think if you're only used to Western stuff, or you're very white, you might want to read this a couple times so that you're not getting confused as to the different terms, but they are laid out pretty nicely as you go. Anyway, you have the 3 stats. You're rolling 3d6 to generate them, and you're just getting those numbers, you're writing them down. You're getting some hit points, which is just going to be 1d6. And you're getting some backgrounds, some ancestry, and different equipment based on other roles you had, right? Or what your ancestry is, what your background is, things like that. So ancestries is like this game's version of races from traditional D&D standpoint. You have your different kinds of folk, like scale folk and horn folk. They have sort of different physical attributes. They also have different personality attributes. And then your backgrounds are things like, you know, a merchant, a healer, a performer, a warrior, stuff like that. And
I want to be a bristle folk. I like
that. Bristle folk.
That's cool.
They're like, you know, they're like boars or whatever. It's cool. Yeah. Then we got the starting equipment, which you have, you know, your armor, your different kinds of gear, your different kinds of clothing, your different kinds of weapons. And what's after that? Let me see here. The equipment list, so we get into more detail in terms of...
It's fun, though. It has all of the Filipino names, right?
Yes.
So, like, Pamalo is fighting stick and stuff, and that's kind of fun. Like,
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's very fun.
But yeah, so we have a nice spread of all the different tools and gear and items, and we also have some ships, because obviously we're in an island setting, so we're going to need to go from place to place. So we got ships that have their own little simple stats, and later on we get things like how ship combat works and some other fun stuff with that. So after that, we get into the general rules. So how you play the game, and again, this is pretty much copied from Cairn. This is a roll under system, primarily. So if you have to make a save, if you have to make an ability check, you're basically looking at the thing that is the most applicable. So your strength, your dex, or your will. And then you're going to try and roll under that with a d20. And like we said earlier, you're generating those stats with 3d6, so they're going to be in line with an OSR D&D stat. They're not going to be as high as you'd get in 5th edition because you're not doing 4d6 drop the lowest, just 3d6. We're going to skew a little lower, so that should be a little harder to get under on a d20, but obviously the better the stat, the easier your check is going to be. Hit, or HP, is hit protection. This is different from hit points in a significant way that we're going to get into with combat, but it gets regained in the same way. So you can heal or you can rest and it goes back up. We have movement and ranges. This is not a game that uses a grid or anything like that. So, you're close to something, you're near it, you're far away, or you're distant, those kind of narrative things. It measures time with, again, kind of the way that OSR stuff typically does with rounds for a short period of time, turns, which the OSR old school dungeon turn, which is 10 minutes, and then watches, which this game describes as 6 hours. It talks about healing and rest, it talks about inventory.
And these are all Cairn concepts, I assume.
Yeah, this is right out of Cairn. This is how Cairn does all this stuff. The inventory system, I think, is also how Cairn does it, though if you watched our Derf video, which you should, go check
Links
that out.
Links down below.
Yeah. The inventory in Cairn and the inventory in Derf work very similarly. So you have inventory slots, and you have 10 of them, and you fill it up with items, and if you have too many items, you're obviously encumbered, but then there's also, you can gain fatigue by doing different things, and those take up slots in your inventory.
Oh, I remember that from Derf, and I really like it.
Yeah. So this works in that same way. And I think in this, it's if you have maximum inventory, it just reduces your HP to 0. So it's hard to fight or take any kind of hit in that situation. So you really don't want to have a full inventory. Then there are things like item usage, which we'll get into a little later when we get into items, and conditions, which are things like fatigue. And there are a bunch of new ones that this game adds that are very, very, very cool. We'll also get into that later. Let's see here. Oh, and there you can get hirelings in this. Like any good OSR game, you can find people to carry your junk for you.
Love it, because you don't want to carry that.
No,
it's dumb.
I don't carry that.
Yeah.
So then after that, we get into war and violence. Yikes, the combat section. So this is the way Cairn deals with combat. To be fair, taken from Into the Odd, so it's kind of the way Into the Odd deals with combat. If it's your turn and you say, I want to hit somebody with my sword, the game master says, okay, cool, roll your sword's damage value. There's no roll to hit, you just are straight into damage, right? And your opponent who's taking that damage has armor, which works as damage reduction, so they're going to cut off some of that, whatever your die roll is, immediately. And then the hit points are going to soak the rest of it. And once the hit points are at 0, again, you only have 6 hit points as a starter character, so it's not going to soak much. Then you start losing ability score points, and specifically strength, or lacas in this. And when you get to 0 on that, you're dead. So luckily you've got, an ability, like a D&D style ability score worth of that, which is a sizable amount. So as that's
going down, though, your rolling under is getting more difficult as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So does it get kind of what's the word? Funnely? Where it's like, or downward spiral?
Death spiral. Well, Death spiral. Because you don't roll the hit in combat, combat it doesn't, right? Because you don't have to roll
outside of combat,
you'd
be like, I'm real beat up. I can't lift this bench.
Yep, okay. Yep, exactly. So that's a thing to pay attention to. You also have stuff with, once you start taking that critical damage to your ability score, you're going to start getting scars, which is a random table where you get sort of like, you kind of get better in a weird way. Like sometimes when you roll it, it actually adds to your ability scores and heals you. So it's like one of those things where the way you progress as a character is being hurt and being in dangerous situations. If you survive them, right? Then you get to come back a little better. So that's a cool thing. And yeah, there's a quick thing for like attack modifiers that are very simplistic in this game. You just sort of are lowering or raising the damage die of your weapon. Critical damage kind of works as you'd expect. There's a blast attack mechanic where like everyone's affected by the damage die instead of just one person. There's a fantastic mechanic that saves you from getting killed really easily if you get swarmed by monsters. This is a thing from Cairn that I love, where if a bunch of enemies are attacking you, they all roll their attack dice, and then the one that has the highest value is what actually hits you, and all the other ones are ignored. So they're just kind of maximizing their chance to get a really good roll, but you're not getting hit like 5 times at once.
I do
right?
like that. Yeah. That's kind of fun.
But after that, we get into sorcery and magic.
Oh, it's happening.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. So the way magic normally works in Cairn is good. I quite like it, but this is much better. The way Cairn normally does magic is you have a bunch of, like a list of like 100 spells in that game. They're all little 1-sentence fun things that can happen. Most of them aren't like damage. They're like, here's a weird thing that you can do. And when you cast them, you get a fatigue into your inventory, right?
Okay.
And, otherwise, that's pretty much it. A very nice, simple spell system. This game goes in a more complex, really interesting narrative route. So this game says, hey, there are 6 base words of power. I'm not going to try pronouncing all of them because I'm going to get them all wrong. But in English, they are seize, call, free, curse, change, and gift. And then each one of those words has 5 spells associated with it. So like change can have a spell that says you shapeshift, but it can also have something where you change someone's mind about something, or you change someone's temperament, or you can like change someone's perception of you or a part of your body temporarily or something. It's like really cool. And then something like seize, right? There's like a hold person version of that, but there's also like a control person version of that, or there's like you can steal someone's memory, or you can like telekinetically draw an object towards you. So lot of really cool, very thematic spells. Yeah, right? They're kind of like spell schools from those familiar with something like D&D, but a little more specific.
What's that? Do you remember the I think it was a zine quest from either last year or the year before. It was like power words or something.
Yes, yeah.
It feels kind of like that, where you're like, I like
simpler,
that idea where it's like, I'm going to use this word. It kind of reminds me of that silly D&D item where it's like you can replace one letter in a spell to drastically change the spell. So everyone creates like, I don't know, like, I can't think of one right now, but it's like something stupid where all of a sudden you're summoning bears or something because you've replaced one letter in a word.
Yeah.
This is similar where it's like, I'm going to take the concept of seizing, like, or this fun verb that can be used in different ways. Like I'm going to seize your memories, or I'm going to seize an object and pull it to me, or or I'm going to seize the day and you turn night into day. There you go.
Yeah. Well, here's the cool thing about that. So these are all specifically written out, right? But it says if you learn all 5 of the specific spells of that word associated with that word of power, once you have learned all 5 of them, you can then start making your own. So then you could be like, I've mastered seizing magic, so now I'm gonna make the seize the day spell, right?
That's cool.
It's very cool. Oh, but it gets better, right? So remember how I said in Cairn, when you cast a spell, you gain a fatigue into your inventory, right?
Yes.
Totally cool system to emulate spell slots in a simple way, and a lot of these spells do that, but a bunch of them add other conditions that are roleplay dependent. So like for the seize thing, you can seize an object and pull it towards you, but you suffer kleptomania.
Yeah.
You can some of them get real dark. The shape change, you can change your body entirely into another shape, but you suffer the taste for flesh condition. Ooh. Oof. There's a bunch of cool ones which are talked about on the next page, and they're basically like kleptomania, anxiety, spice intolerance. That's funny. You think all food is very bland. Paranoia, deathly look, taste for flesh, bloodlust, and some of them are as simple, like, obviously you have to role play them, right, when you get those conditions, as you would expect to role play them with what they're called. But obviously they have little descriptions too if you're not sure. And then you get rid of them, some of them by resting, and then some of them you have to do a specific thing. So like the duty bound is one of them. And you have to perform this task. It's like you have a gesh or something. And you get rid of that condition by doing the thing, obviously.
Now,
right?
Can you cast the spell again? Or do you have to clear the condition before you can?
You know,
is that kind of the idea, I wonder?
I'm not sure. I think you probably should.
I guess it's kind of up to how you want to play. Like, if you want to have higher magic, or like, oh, you got to get rid of this affliction now. But
yeah,
because with fatigue, I think I could take on more fatigue, and then at a point you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But like, how do you take on more paranoid? But now that I say that out loud, would be really fun to role play. Like,
yes.
Okay, I'm like a little paranoid, and then by the end you're like, I don't sleep at night because these people are out to get me or something. Like, I like that.
So that's how magic works. It's super cool. I like it a lot. Like it a lot. All the different conditions. So neat. And then the book talks about magic items, or anting, I think. I didn't pronounce it right. Are magic items, and oils are like oils you rub into your body, but they work the same way as potions. So they're like, they're the potion variant. And magic items in Cairn and magic items in this, very cool, because most of them, they have like a magical ability. Sometimes it's just like a spell, sometimes it's another specific thing, and they will usually have a number of charges on that, like you'd expect from a magic item in an RPG, right? But they always have a cool recharge mechanic, and it's always narrative driven. And that is the really cool thing about the base rules of Cairn, and it's, continued in this. So we have stuff like a sweet-smelling branch which fireflies flock to, providing a light source that does not burn or burn out, unless the fireflies die from external forces. Yikes. The way you recharge it is you wander in a forest holding the branch. So you have to attract more fireflies to it, right? So there's all sorts of fun stuff like that. And it's all like narrative things you have to do to get the items to recharge.
What do you think about it? Like, I mean, you know Cairn pretty well, it feels like.
Yes, I've written a little bit of stuff for... I've written a supplement for Cairn. So I know the rule set very well. And I like this a lot because of the ways it expands on it, specifically with that magic system and the conditions it uses in it. I think expanding the kinds of conditions really gives us a lot of flexibility for role-playing stuff. It's just, that's such a cool
and like
idea.
Not all magic is created equal. I like that, where it's like, it's, casting this spell is going to have a very different effect on me than casting this other spell, and I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that could be used in a lot of different...
It's such
the
a
cost
great...
of magic, like that. That was there's your supplement title right there. The cost of magic.
The cost of magic.
Our new magic system coming out in July of 2028.
Listen, this is all Creative Commons. We could just steal it. I wouldn't do that, but it's so really cool, because it's a great marriage of mechanics and role play, and that's always the sweet spot in an RPG if you can find a way to do that, right? Yeah. So
make
I love
the setting really work with the
totally
the rules that you've written, which they've done a really good job with this one. So,
yes. So that I love that about it, and I just love the setting. It's really refreshing to see something that's inspired by Philippine folklore and culture and legends, and have them like really well represented here, and a lot of good sort of text on like how it works and how to run it. So if you are like just a bunch of like Western people who don't really have any experience with any of this stuff running it, like the book does a good job explaining to you how it goes down. I think like, what are the things that stand out to you about it that you really like?
Good question. I just, this cover keeps pulling me in. I really
it's
like
good.
the
It's
art.
very simplistic, but it's very effective. Right.
I like roll under mechanics. I feel like a lot of people get, and I guess that's more of a Cairn rather than this thing, but like, roll under is just such a elegant, good system because you could see how good you are and you instantly know, like, the higher the number, the more likely I'm going to succeed. But the idea of, like, rolling a 1 is good, kind of throws people off, myself included back in the day. But
Sure.
Because this is such a naval setting, like archipelago or whatever, like, I like all the boat rules. I think those are really fun. And that it has an emphasis on hexes for boat rules, and like that you can apply your expertise to certain boating positions and stuff. So that was something that stuck out to me a little bit. I really like that. And just like all the fun names and stuff. This is something I don't think I would play. I feel like this is Call of Cthulhu, where I want somebody else who knows Call of Cthulhu really well to run it for me. Like, I want to have the experience of someone who knows this culture and mythology, and then craft like a really awesome story that I would get to experience, if that makes sense.
Sure.
This is a lot of fun to read. I think it's put together really well. Like, this PDF is awesome.
Yeah, it's very concise, which is also another thing that, like, because this is riffing on Cairn, and that book is very much like that too, and OSR, minimalist stuff in general, you know, they prize that very highly.
Yeah.
This book does a great job of that. I have, like, a few quibbles with some of the formatting, but it's minor stuff. Like, you know, just like some words are like closer together than I want them to be.
Something,
you know,
something happened in the creation of the PDF, but could be easily fixed, obviously.
Easily, yeah.
It's interesting that we have this really strong mechanic for like fatigue and stuff. You're putting that in your inventory slots. But the juxtaposition of that is this very abstract, like, what does fatigue mean? What does, like, hunger for flesh mean? What does paranoid mean? Like, we have to super role play that, but we have a very mechanical, this is in my inventory spot. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying there, and you can tell that, right? Like, it's sort of an addition to the original system in terms of how inventory worked. Yeah, I would almost have liked it more if they ditched fatigue entirely as a thing that takes up slots in your inventory and just made it all role play conditions. Because
I think that's what I am missing, because, like, some of it is, it's just not, I like that, because the thing I'm most excited about is, like, oh, now I'm paranoid. Like, what does that mean? We get to role play that. That's kind of cool. And you have a very specific, like, in order to get rid of that, you have to do this. And I like that as well, because now you're kind of doing little, guys, we got a side quest so I can clear my head before I can cast more spells. Like, I like that idea. And maybe that could be something that the author works towards, or another person takes a hack and creates it. But that's,
I really like that approach to magic. Very cool. So yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Manga Ya. Right?
Manga Ya. I think so.
It's really cool. This is currently on itch.io. I will put it down below. It is a name your own price. I encourage you to give them a couple bucks, because it's always fun to make this stuff, and then do it. Get it out there. It looks like this was a OSR June Jam submission. I like these little medals that you can get on your thing. So.
Nice.
If you guys are interested in more of this, you can check out, subscribe to this channel. Lex and I, we have a playlist that I'll put somewhere down below or on the screen. And you can check out more game reviews with Lex in the top right corner as we scour through minimalist RPGs all over the internet. So until then, take care, and we'll see you later.